Let's see if I can get the levels set up before we get kicking here. Let me tell you, I tried my darndest to find my sketchbook, and I don't know where it is. I've completely lost it. In more ways than one. Let me know if you can hear me, because that's step one, honestly. Big part of this whole presentation is being able to hear me. And then we'll go from there. Little quiet? Oh, that's interesting. It says I'm being loud and annoying on my end. I'm about to go into clipping territory. And it should be moderately well balanced with the music. We'll see how that goes. We'll also see how the music goes. I just did a search for YouTube safe playlist, because as you might know, YouTube pretty strict on I mean Twitch is as well, let's be honest. They're both mega corporations, but YouTube apparently is very strict on the audio. So I went and I found something that was like, this is safe from content claiming. We'll see. Worst that happens is I take down the VOD. Not the biggest deal in the world. But it should be safe. So the music, until I find some alternative, might be a little generic for a while, but at least it's pleasant. Kind of reminds me of the very, very early days of streaming, when I used to just search for playlists that were safe. Although I'll tell you, most of those playlists turned out not to be safe. It was stuff that I had downloaded from YouTube, like... I don't know how in the weeds we want to get on this, but on YouTube, watch me start streaming on YouTube and immediately start bad-mouthing them. On YouTube, you can download safe music and sound effects. They have an audio library. Something that I found out when I was making videos years ago is those licenses aren't permanent. So eventually, when the license runs out, they can just go back through your video and be like, nah, actually... Nah, we're going to claim it now. Like years later. Years and years later. Which is wild. Because it's like, dog, I went to your library to like check out a safe book. And now you're telling me the book is made of fire and bugs? Well, it is what it is, I suppose. Yes, always safe to dunk on YouTube. They are a megacorp, just like Twitch. But I'm very excited that Twitch was like, yo, you can just stream on whatever now. You're not allowed to stream simultaneously, they said, but you can switch off. You can stream on whatever you want now, which I'm excited to try out, because honestly, the community of artists on Twitch is incredible. Some of the best people on the planet, but it's really hard to get like any traction over on Twitch just because of the way the platform is set up. Like it's not anything specific other than they have really bad discoverability. So unless you're Bob Ross, it's really hard for artists to get discovered on Twitch. It's a little bit easier if you play video games over there, which I think was the idea. But apparently on YouTube, the algorithm is more like people are already on YouTube making art and craft videos, so they should go into that algorithm. Fingers crossed. We'll see. Yes, YouTube archives these automatically. In fact, I have it set to automatically go into, since I'm streaming on the YouTube channel where I would put up my stream archives. Although I have neglected doing that for a while. Because it's hard to remember. But it does it automatically. It's actually going to appear right in that playlist as soon as the stream is over. And I don't have to do any additional stuff to make it happen, which is very exciting to me. That's another huge plus for streaming on YouTube itself, is it's just going to tuck it directly into the VOD archive, and everyone will be able to go and watch it later on, if they so choose. So we're going to get started here in just a second. We're going to have us a little bit of fun. I don't really know what I'm painting yet. Honestly, most of my time today has been figuring out how to stream on YouTube at all. So we'll see how that all goes. I'm just going to probably go to Pcrepo and find something at random, and we'll just have some fun painting loosely today. Which is good. We had a bit of a loose paint the last stream that we did, and it was fantastic. I had a really nice time doing that little mushroom house. So I'm going to grab a bit of tape here. I've got my brushes, I've got my pencils, I've got some fresh cut paper. It's switched over to say it's an hour. Don't worry. We're going to switch over to the overhead cam now. Floop. And there it is. Wow, it's almost perfectly framed up. That's pretty slick. So as you can see, I've got a nice big sheet. This is a half sheet of cold press Arches watercolor paper. And we're going to go in and tape that down. Nice and clean. Oh, damn, y'all talking about Kazuha? Who's pulling for Kazuha? I always forget we have some Genshin stands in the bear community. I haven't played in a long time. Honestly, I've been looking to get back in. But Kazuha is one of my favorite characters. I managed to get 2 dupes. So I think I'm at Con 2, Con 1. I forget how the cons work, but I love Kazuha. Wonderful character. My favorite currently is still the Raiden Shogun. But I think it's only because I managed to... I'm sorry, to anyone who doesn't care about Genshin, I'll stop talking about it soon, but I managed to get her weapon in the banner, which is the main reason why I like using her so much, because her weapon is ridiculously strong when paired with her. But I love playing Genshin. Did they already release the new area, or are they doing that soon? Either way, I should get back in. Now I've got myself a little bit of... By the way, if you're just joining me for the first time or discovering me on YouTube now, either live or in the VODs, hi, hello. My name's Matt. This is an Eiffel Art stream. I usually stream on Twitch, but Twitch recently allowed partners to start streaming elsewhere, so I'm trying YouTube out. Seems nice. It's a website that I use every single day of my life, so I figured, why not? So I'll describe some of the things that I'm using as I'm using them, because I know that some people are new or curious. I mean, we always have a question about my palette paper every single time. So as I tape that down, I'll say, palette paper is basically fancy wax paper. It can hold up to a little bit of extra punishment and scrubbing in water. But that's where I mix my colors. And I'm just going to tape that down so it doesn't go flying all over the place when I start mixing these colors. Today is Tuesday, which is usually our big day for painting. Call it Gouache Tuesday. Although I went with a slightly sillier stream title today, because honestly, I didn't know if I'd even be able to get it up and running. I was unsure of the technology. But it seems to be okay. I mean, it's saying that our stream is powerful currently. I'm getting some fun live statistics in the behind the scenes panel here, which is really cool. Heck yes. Let's all create accounts just for watching streams. I feel you on that. That's basically, I've got one of those. Well, I've got a YouTube channel that's like just for, you know, these are the channels I watch and subscribe to, like my very personal YouTube channel. Still somehow over the years, almost 100 people have subscribed to it because I guess they search my name. I don't know. But then I have 3 different Eiffel art channels that I've started at different times over the last 10, 15 years or whatever, in different stages of my creative life. I think actually the first time I ever live streamed was on YouTube, but it was at the, like, in YouTube streaming's infancy. I think it was on YouTube at least. But it was digital art. It was like 100,000 years ago. And back then, I was known on DeviantArt. This is how old this is. I was known on DeviantArt for doing this series of illustrations from different video games, but they were called the Boss Fight series, where I would basically draw a bunch of panels on a page, and then I would draw different boss fights from a single video game. And I remember I was doing the one for, there's a reason that I'll never forget this, but it was for the Minish Cap, Legend of Zelda the Minish Cap. And it was a great series of illustrations, and I wish I still had it because they have since been lost. The file got deleted or the hard drive died. It was like 3 computers ago. But I don't have the original files for it anymore, which is a real shame because I loved how those ones came out. But that is how it is. Now, I've got my brushes, what I call primed, which in most cases would mean something different for a brush. All I do is dip it in water to make sure that the bristles are fully saturated so that they're ready to clip right into the paint when I need them the most. We're going to get some colors down on the paper here, but first, I want to figure out what to draw today or what to paint. So I'm going to go to a website that I like to use very often when I need inspiration, and that is called Picrepo, which I always keep under my streaming things. Now, I don't know how YouTube works for posting links. I'm going to post a link. We'll see if it works. I think it does. But anyway, this is where I like to go if I need to know what something looks like, which is fairly often when you're a professional illustrator and you're trying to draw several things on the fly. But I tend to go there and just type something vague in, like forest or mountain or potato. And then from that, I can draw some source of inspiration or get a sense of lighting for an environment. And we're going to do that today. We're going to go to Picrepo. And I'm going to type in storm and see what comes up. Because I don't know if I've done that before on this website. Now it is giving me a lot of anime results, which is very funny. I'm going to set aside this other piece of watercolor paper that I cut, because I don't want it to get splashed with a bunch of wild paint. All right, so I'm just going to scroll on down this page until I find something that I like. I'm kind of feeling like painting stormy clouds. Maybe a stormy sea. Ooh, I kind of like what this one looks like. All right. Definitely the angle, the shapes. I'm not going to take any of that information because it's not really what I was envisioning when I thought about doing something stormy. But the lighting elements, I am definitely going to take a peek at this reference for. It's going to be very handy. So when I do something like clouds that have a lot of soft edges, a great thing to do is to get in there with the water, splash it around, and make it so that the colors can blend seamlessly into each other. So we're going to do that for a start. And I'm going to go loose on this one. There's going to be no sketch underneath. So with a big 1-inch brush, I'm just going to dip that right into some clean water. Sorry, I had to reply to a text really fast. All right, so I'm just going to blast this paper with water. Now, the thing about watercolor paper in general, and to a less general extent, the Arches watercolor paper that I use, it is thirsty friggin' paper. So it takes a lot of water, and it takes multiple coats of water sometimes. But what I want to make sure that I do is evenly coat the page. So that there's no particular water pools anywhere. And now I'm going to get some colors together. So I'm going to get some turquoise light. I'm going to get something to balance out the turquoise. In this case, I'm going to grab some sepia. Now, I don't usually like using black in my mixtures just because I like to mix down to a color, a dark color, with a combination of other colors. But in this case, I actually wanted to saturate some of my darker colors, so I'm going to use black for that. I want a little bit of gray in the mix. And then we're going to get, of course, some white. I'm going to go with permanent white. A little bit of yellow, a little bit of pink. Actually, I don't want that golden yellow color. But I want to have sort of a breakthrough sunset spot. I'm going to make most of this piece pretty desaturated, but that's because I want to emphasize like a particular spot in the picture. Well, actually, I don't want to use alizarin crimson. That's a bit too cool. I want to use a neutral red. I got spectrum red here. My spectrum red is, this one's probably 4 years old at this point, and it really doesn't want to come out of the tube anymore, which I completely relate to. Get to a certain age and you just don't want to come out of the tube anymore. Now, I used up the last of my regular yellow, my primary yellow, during the last stream that we did, but I'm going to use a little bit of linden green. And then I'm going to go to my case of gouache in the other room, my new unopened gouache, and I'm going to grab the primary yellow from that. So I'm going to be right back. All right, got my new primary yellow. This is brand new, unopened, which also means that there might be a little bit of filler at the top of the tube. But it's actually not too bad. Could be worse. Sometimes they really pack it with filler, and you gotta kind of squeeze through it a bit. All right, so that has had enough time to soak into the paper. So now the paper is not watered down as much as it is just damp. So I'm going to go over it with another layer of water. and then we are off to the races. So I'm going to dip in my brush. Still got a bit of residual blue. Make sure that's nice and clean before we start mixing colors here. So I'm going to grab some white. And this is only going to be for a very small portion. But I want it to burst out from this side. Maybe this side. I'll do this side. Now, when you're building a sunset, it's good to just keep dipping back into the colors. So you get a little bit of variance. We're basically putting in the absolute brightest colors in the scene first, and then we're going to build downward. So I want a lot of saturation from these colors. I actually switch to the calligraphy brush to do some of these clouds. So get my red and my yellow. Pull together a nice deep orange. A little bit of pink just to brighten things up a bit. Hey, Killer Z, how you doing? Good to see ya. It's so fun to pop in these organic shapes and just have them kind of fold themselves into position. Because when you're working with water, it's such a... I mean, obviously you can control it to a point, but after that, it's just physics kind of doing its thing, which is a very exciting part of doing watercolor or gouache. And my goal with painting these storm clouds in is just thinking about how heavy the rain is inside of them. When I think about that, then it's just like, well, I'll put the shadow down underneath, but you don't paint the whole cloud that dark color. You let it be lighter on top and then darker underneath for the shadow, and then it gives that kind of like weight and also the backlighting. We've had a lot of thunderstorms lately where I live, and it's been so nice, honestly. Because we didn't have them for most of last summer. It was pretty dry. But it's been relatively constant this year. You'll notice that if you see me paint trees before, I tend to hold really high up on the brush, and that just helps the movement be a little bit more randomized, a little bit more chaotic, which is something I really like when I'm painting natural forms that have a little bit of kick to them. So I'm doing that with these cloud forms as well when I drop on the extra color and water and stuff. Just kind of letting the brush fall where it wants to go. I'm directing it to the general area, but after that it's on its own journey. The bits of light peeking through the clouds, yeah, it's, I mean, that's what makes the mood, right? It's having this kind of feeling of energy behind the storm. I'm almost doing like dagger-like movements. Dagger brush to the side. I put the brush into what I like to call screwdriver formation, which is after you're done sort of swishing it around in the paint, you make the top of the brush go flat. So when you turn it to the side, it looks like a flathead screwdriver. And then when you have it like that, you can make these really good horizontal movements. Or if you have less paint in the brush and you kind of squeeze the belly of it, you can spread those bristles out and get really nice, like grass effects. It's the way they did it in old animation backgrounds. Now I want to soften the edges of some of these clouds down here, so I'm taking the paint out of the brush and just getting some clean water and blotting it a little bit, but basically just going back through and scrubbing some of the edges of those clouds. Now I'm going to go back into these sunset colors, but darker with a little more of the cloud color in it. So it's actually good that I have the cloud color down on the palette right now, because I can mix back up into that color. Just grabbing a little bit of this and that. I'm going to grab the pink and the blue. Some nice high key saturation colors, because anything close to the light will regain its saturation. I'm going to mix together kind of a dark, deep, orangey color. Ooh. Had an alarm set for something that didn't happen. Way to go me for turning that off. Alright, so we'll mix down blue, red, pink, rinse and repeat. A little bit of white, blue, red, pink. Now I want to have colors at different stages, which is why I'm sort of separating them out into these little separate blobs. And what I want to do is slowly start encroaching in on those colors and making them darker and darker so that I can focus my little sunset here to a finer point. When you surround a light area with dark area, it'll make the light area look a lot more vibrant and shiny. I'm just going to clean some of these duller colors off of the palette here. So I can mix a high key orange back together. Now another thing I need to work on is finishing out the rest of this so I can actually get the lighting correct, the values correct for the rest of the painting. So I'm going to put in that dark ocean. So I don't want these warm colors here for that. I want it a little bit in the water beneath, right where the sun has set. Also, I need to take a little drink of the old water. All right. So I'm going to go in and mix together some light colors for the water's surface, starting with a very bright pinkish purple. So to do that, I'm mixing the turquoise together with that opera rose to get a very, very light sort of lilac. And before I do that, I'm going to wet down the paper again down here, because by now it's pretty much totally dry again. And I want to do this quickly so as not to reactivate all of the paint here. So that's where the reflection's going to be, and I'll add a little bit more tone down near the bottom, a little bit more pink. Nothing fancy, we're just sort of blocking in. And then I need a lighter color for the reflection of the sky. So now I'm going to take that same color, but I'm going to boost the blue. And I want to make it light, so again I'm going to dip into that permanent white. And that'll be our light color on the waves. And I'll just mix those two colors together, but have that sort of purple streak going down from the sunset. And then I want a slight gradient going in from the sides, and I also want a little bit of a gradient on the top. So I'm going to dip into my darker color now, my ultramarine blue. and always going back and using the base color as kind of like my modifier. Just so all the colors are kind of next to each other. And these colors here are going to be the absolute lightest things on the ocean waves. We're going to go much darker, of course, because the sky is dark and the ocean is a reflection of the sky. But we want to lay in the light colors first, so we have that as like our underpainting, basically. And then just like in the clouds, I'm going to mix together the ultramarine and the ivory black and get that really, really deep color, which I will then mix down into. I'm adding in a few little mountains back here. Some land masses. And I will darken them up significantly. So I want them to be almost black. Actually, I guess I could use the gold for this part. Just a touch. Just a touch. Now, a lot of the little finishing light touches and stuff, I'm actually going to need to wait until the paper is more dry. There's a couple of spots I'm just going to kind of indicate where I want those places to be. And I'll come back to those later. This cool galaxy we have here on the palette. Purples and blues. Always impressive. Well, thank you, Tilly. This is a way that I like to stylize my waves sometimes. It gives it kind of a fantastical quality, sort of halfway between realism and like an anime styling almost. And one of the reasons I like it so much is it really allows you to direct the eye to sort of a movement in the water. Which, of course, you can do with realism. You can tell, generally when waves are moving in the water. But I feel like when you're doing something photorealistically, there's so many fiddly little details that it's really easy to get lost in it. Whereas this is kind of breaking down that idea and making it a lot broader. And it's especially invigorating when you're doing this because you've already laid in the lighter colors, and now those colors are going to shine through the in-between parts, so it's going to look like this really cool sort of light reflection. So once I fully got the water painted in, it gave me a much better idea of what the actual value of the painting was in terms of the overall sort of color and lighting and feel. So now I'm able to take that information back up into the sky and readjust where I want the focus to be. It's never what you think it's going to be at the beginning, which I think is my favorite thing about painting in general. This thing just keeps going through different permutations of how the sky and the sea make me feel when I actually look at it in a photograph or something like that. Don't know why I said photograph in that way. But when I do look at a photograph, it makes me feel a very particular feeling, a storm over the ocean. It's foreboding, but it's also kind of comforting. Inevitability of nature. I guess the calm before the storm. I'm also going back through a lot of these passages where I had only soft edges, and I'm adding in some harder edges in the clouds. So I like the way that that adds to the kind of forceful nature of the storm. Gives it a bit of a sharp edge, feels like it has more purpose. Just cool, painting a picture, you know? Just letting it go where it wants to go. Trying to facilitate that. The stream has been really nice. It's very similar in feel. I was worried it would feel completely different than my usual Twitch streams. But aside from not having my bot in place for announcements and not having our emotes, I gotta figure out how to get our emotes back. I think I gotta probably reach a certain level of subscribers or something to get to that. But the second I do, we'll have all of our bear emotes back, believe you me. Or maybe it's already activated by default. I'll look into it. All right, time for the best part of the stream. Let's go ahead and take the tape off. Do our dramatic reveal. Surprisingly clean for the amount of water that I used. It's always a pleasant surprise. Now let's give it a little sign here. Today is the 30th. Is today the last day of August? Can't be so. No, there's one more day. Wow. It's going to be September this week. Well, I guess the next time I see you, it'll be September. That is so wild. But today has been August 30th, 2022. I hope you've enjoyed relaxing with me either again or for the first time. And if you're watching this on the VOD later, I'm going to try to alternate week to week. So 1 week on Twitch, 1 week on YouTube, and we'll see how it goes. I'm hoping that in the near future we'll have enough folks over here on the YouTube that I can start implementing all the weird little emotes and stuff like we have over on Twitch. But for today, I will just say thank you so much for joining me for this fun little experiment. And I will see y'all next week. Take it easy, everybody.